right, welcome back to another episode of the Uncommon Crew. It's your host, Sir Larry. Welcome by our other host, Josie. And we have Miss Michaela. And we have a special guest, Dylan. Welcome to the show, man.
Thank y'all. Appreciate it.
Welcome.
Thank y'all.
And how you been today, man?
Man, what they say, blessed and highly favored.
Oh, yes.
All the time.
Blessed
Cool.
and highly favored. That's
It's a
good.
little rainy outside, though, but I'm all right.
Oh, yeah, man. We appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you.
You know, this topic is a very popular topic in today's society. Every time you go on a first date, what's the first thing they ask you is what's your zodiac sign?
Yeah.
It's not what's your job title anymore. It's your zodiac. It's not your job title anymore. It's what's your
it's not.
zodiac.
You know, they ask you. They ask you that. They ask you how much money you make afterwards.
Okay.
They got to
Okay.
know if they're compatible or not. You know. So let's just get straight into it because I'm very interested to see everybody's opinion about this topic. So first and foremost, do you believe in zodiac signs? Do you follow zodiac signs or the astrology of it all?
No.
Okay. Okay. I'm similar to you. I don't really. I know all of them because you hear them a lot, but I don't follow any of them. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What about y'all? Do y'all believe or do you follow the?
Okay, I have followed it, and I do believe in some of it. I do believe that there's, if there's science, if there's some truth, if they found proof of it, I think to a point there's some truth behind astrology. Astrology, not so much. What is zodiac? Is astrology?
I was just about
only
to say astrology is a science. Astronomy is not, because there's not truth in interpreting how God made the stars and the constellations, and this whole zodiac thing is off of a man-made interpretation of how Eastern cultures, because that's where it started, Mesopotamia and then India and then China, and then it came to the West. But it's what we call falsely worshiping God's divine nature, because it is divination in its sense, but we're just making it our own out of what God created anyway.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well said. That's really accurate.
Yeah, what she said.
Yeah. Because I was going to ask them why. I was curious of why. Like, why do you believe in zodiac symbols?
Like I said, I do believe in science. Like when they can actually prove, like as far as like the stars created this. The stars are, there's like the numbers and all that. I'm not sure exactly like the way she just broke it down, but I do believe that there's some truth to it. And I don't think it's like absolutely 100% accurate. Do I follow it? Do I think that just because you were born this day, you're not for me? I may look it up. I may still read it, but I don't believe it. It's a battle I'm fighting with that. But I do think I've seen like why it's, it's not right, because there is, it kind of goes back to that manifesting. Mm-hmm. Like I do feel like if you tell yourself you're this, you're kind of like cursing yourself, and you're allowing those demons to come into your life. Like, for example, Aries, you're an aggressive person, and I believe it. I'm pretty much inviting that spirit into my life, and then I'm gonna start acting on it. So I also believe that too. But
okay,
as a Christian, it does take God's identity that he gave you away, because you're saying all these attributes, these personality traits that your zodiac claims you have is what you are. So you're gonna want to gravitate towards that if that's something you want to believe in, instead of what God has designed us for and how he views us. So I think that's a really important thing when it comes to being a Christian, and when you think about the 12 constellations, because the stars were really intended for people to travel, to find their own way, to figure out what season is it, when we didn't have all this fancy technology. But a man has turned it into something else that seems super spiritual, but it's really determining your destiny, because that's what people who really believe in it really believe. Like when you were born is how you are destined to be in this world. So there's no changing your destiny, which takes God out of the equation.
Yeah.
And I think a big thing that kind of factors in when you were kind of talking about the spirituality, because there's a lot of people who say they're very spiritual and they'll follow the zodiac signs and whatnot. But I think there's a lot of people who get lost in translation, that you're spiritual as well, but you also being religious. Like the Bible talks literally about believing in false prophets, and people use this astrology and zodiac signs to prophesize the future, which it goes against the Bible. I know Isaiah 47, 13, I believe 13 to 14 talks about condemning those who believing in false prophets and using astrology of that nature to basically prophesize like somebody saying, if you're this way, and kind of like you said, determining who you are based off of incorrect illusion. What I would say, it's all false. It's not real. It's not from the Bible. Again, obviously God made the stars. He made the planets and everything. So you can, of course, look at stars, study science, study the stars, study the outer space. All that's okay. But using that in a wrong way is what the problem is. And I feel like in our society that we.
But see, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you can use it in the wrong way, then there's also, it could be used in the right way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's why I say I do believe in it to a point. Now, of course, Catholics. I've been to Catholic church. I really don't start just because I feel that they worship a lot of man-made sculptures and I read it in the Bible. I don't remember, but my aunt had pointed out to me about worshiping, sculptures and stuff like that. Like, in their heads, they think that they're worshiping a saint or God or the Virgin Mary, but in reality, they're worshiping these statues that they were touched by man, they were created by man. So, I mean, in the bigger picture, in the spiritual world, technically, you're not worshiping God. You're worshiping these objects first. So I think it's similar to that, but again, if there's of the good, there's a bad. If there's a bad, there's a good. So if there's some good in the stars and how they, align and, they're used for other purposes, who's not to say that some of the astrology can be correct? It's just being used wrong or being put out there wrong.
Yeah, that's interesting because you brought up Isaiah 47, which is actually talks about the prophecy against Babylon. And Babylon is old Mesopotamia, right? Now you're talking about old Iraq, old Iran, like that area. And then if Isaiah is prophesying to these people in the time of Daniel, then you're able to see like, wow, scriptures literally come into life. Like a couple verses here, it says, stand fast in your enchantments and in your many sorceries with which you have labored from your youth. Perhaps you may be able to succeed. Perhaps you may inspire terror. You are wearied with your many counsels. It's deep. Let them stand forth and save you. Those who divide the heavens, because you talked about divides. Who gaze at the stars. Who at the new moons make known what shall come upon you. It says, behold, they are like stubble. The fire consumes them. They cannot deliver themselves from the power of the flame. No coal for warming one is this, no fire to sit before. And it lastly says, such to you are those with whom you have labored, who have done business with you from your youth. They wander about, each in its own direction. There is no one to save you. And it's deep because a lot of times people use horoscopes and astrology to save themselves, to give themselves an identity. I laugh and joke. People are like, well, what's your horoscope sign? And I'd be like, oh. I say $sign. And then you're like, no, what's your birth sign? I'm like, an Aquarius. And then they kind of think, and in my head, I'm like, well, as a person that doesn't believe in it, if I'm the smartest of the Zodiac, I'm smart enough to know it's not real. And then usually that causes some kind of negative discord. But what makes me wonder is what sparked you, and like yourself and even you, right? Well, you kind of explained from the Catholic side as well, but I'd be curious of what was y'all thoughts on what helped you drive your thought process to say, hey, this isn't accurate, and what is the actual historical truth behind it? Because you shared a lot of truth there that people may not go and find, but it's public knowledge.
So for me, I looked at it and I kept saying that, you can have daily horoscopes and look at how your day is going to go. And innately, because we've been given a conscience, I know myself, okay, this can't be right, because how is this thing going to know how my day is, how I'm going to react to things? And it keeps talking about the stars and the moon, but okay, where's the acknowledgement of God? If God is who I claim him to be, then he's going to lead me through the day, every day. So for me, that was the first point where I said, okay, this stuff is really not that great. And I'm not going to walk around, because I'm going to feel crazy telling people, well, my horoscope said today that it's going to be cloudy. And like, it's just nonsense. So, and it seemed like a psychic It
Yeah.
seemed like an online cycle for me.
That's
So
what
I was like, no, this is not what I'm trying to do.
I would say that's exactly it. It feels like a psychic, again, trying to tell you and trying to dictate who you are, determine who you are in your future.
Yeah.
And like, again, there's so many things that we I would say just in this world that we lose, where we're so distracted by in this world. And I feel like horoscopes is that another distraction, that people live their everyday life by the horoscope. Okay, today is going to be this. Okay, this is what I'm thinking. But instead of reading the Bible and reading the Word and praying and feeding your spirit, you're feeding something else.
Yeah.
You know, there's spirits in this world. There's good spirits and there's bad spirits.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, going down that path, again, you can be using it for good and more so in just studying, but not worshiping and praising this, and this is your go-to every single day.
Yeah, and you kind of turned me up with that one. So to your point, you said good and bad, right? So some good practicality you can use with looking at the cosmos, if you will, right? You could take like a farmer's almanac and see like, hey, at this time, plant these seeds, right? Hey, at this time, winter's gonna come, or, they do the whole groundhog thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
They
Yeah,
joke
that's
about
what I'm
it.
saying.
But that's like the silly version to the actual calculation behind it, right? I'm gonna give y'all some back history since you opened up history. So you ask yourself, how did they do? I got bored when they said, how do they study calendars? Like, what was they doing? Like, who said it's 12 months in a year? Like, how did that go about? So they said, if you look in the Bible Encyclopedia, International Bible Standard Bible Encyclopedia, in the Bible Dictionary, they define calendars based off of Moses. They said Moses' time is the furthest they can go back because Moses had a library when he was in Egypt. The problem is, what happened? They left. So there's a separation between what's calculated and not. When the three wise men looked for Jesus, they did what? Observed. They looked at the star and said, you know what? I'm going to track down the star, which was good because they kept it in line with what God was directing them to do, right? The second part that came about when you break up the calendar is the time of Moses. They observed, but there's also a form of calculation. The problem with it was the Egyptians believed in Amun-Ra. They believed in Osiris. They believed in using the sundial to be able to calculate the time with very little care for observance. Then you had the time of Daniel, which King Xerxes, Nebuchadnezzar, Mesopotamia, what we're talking about now. They believed that they were high math, but this is the key. What we use as a culture now was a subset of them. King Xerxes and Nebuchadnezzar and Darius and them, they said, well, hey, we've captured y'all, Daniel. That's cool. Y'all got that record. Catholics, Christians, y'all believe in that. But this is the actual, what we calculate. And I learned their calendar, we do a leap year with the February, it's sometime, they would skip whole months. Like it would go from February, instead of next month being February, it'd be like June, or they'll skip over and over August. So you're like, well, I don't even know what year or month this is, right? And it would throw them off in a way because the Hebrews would observe the moon. Every new moon would be a new month. And Daniel's trying to keep up with it. But his culture, right, the society he lives in, they have a whole different standard. Just like in America, we use the Julian calendar, which is based off the Gregorian calendar, which we are in 2024. But say Ethiopia or Turkey and other places, they use the Hebrew calendar, and it's 5 to 8 years prior. It's not 2024 yet. So who's to say who's right and who's wrong? So lastly, what we do today, we use calculation. We don't observe. Nobody goes outside. Like last night was a full moon. None of y'all went out there and said.
I did. I went outside and I was like, Dad, look at that full moon.
But you didn't say it was a new month.
I did. And when I was walking inside.
But my simple point. No, you're good. My simple point in land the plane is you have to start asking yourself, if you believe, to anybody out there believing, ask yourself, how do you know the month you're in is, like, I'm born January 29th. How do I know it's actually January 29th? Whose calendar am I going off of? So when you start doing the history of it, it starts to make a little more sense of how we got here.
It does.
Yeah. Well, let me follow you up. Us as Christians, how do we take that next step to get others who faithfully believe in horoscopes? Do we cancel? Should we create something where, because cancel culture is very big now. Is there something where we try to petition in order to, or gather or get more people to understand, try to cancel zodiac signs or cancel believing in horoscopes? Like, how do we do that? Because obviously it's very big. I mean, everybody.
Yeah. I think one verse I like this small verse I wrote down before, it was from 1 Thessalonians. It says, abstain from all appearance of evil. So if I know something is going to lead me astray, and in Leviticus 19:26 says, do not practice divination or sorcery, I would try to strongly, I mean, you're not going to not make it to heaven because, I read my astrology book. It's going to be somebody out there, you're trying to say I'm not going to salvation. Nobody's saying that. You have salvation, but why not take it further? And I would tell people to abstain from something like Paul would do. Paul said, if I know this causes my brother to stumble, I won't eat meat. I'm just not going to do it, right? If I know the difference, if I want to take a glance, right, I got bored, right, I looked, God's not going to, condemn me to I don't know if I can say that word, to the wrong part of afterlife, right? God's not going to stop me from getting to heaven. So I would tell Christians, don't cancel somebody, but teach somebody. Okay. Be able to encourage them, say like, why? I asked the question I asked you, why? I just simply ask people why. And when you ask why, you start to understand, like, why do you think that way? Like, what got you to believe that was true? And then you can start seeing the stronghold that's on people. And then you can start praying that off. And like, hey, why are you so attached to that? Like, it's identity. Like, some people treat, beads or jewels or gemstones, they treat those like a powerful amulet, like it has power. Instead of realizing the good that God was trying to bring out of it, that we don't have to live by those certain things no more. So instead of canceling, just try to teach and educate people.
Yeah, and the Bible says, as Christians, we are free. We're not confined to what something or another resource says about us. So even if you read that and you're into that, okay, I would ask that person to, I would encourage them to be more Christ-like, because that's what we're all trying to do. All of our characteristics should be goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. So we're all trying to conform to the image of Christ. And obviously, you can easily, tell a Christian that's not the image of Christ, whatever your horoscope is telling you that you are and you're going to be.
My bad. But it hit me. You know why it's important too? Because people are always looking for an answer.
Yeah.
The reason why they even had those sorcerers and the people they call Chaldeans were these post people of wisdom, right? No disrespect to the Chaldeans I know now. Like, at that time period, is because they wanted to know what was going to come ahead. People don't like waiting on God. Like, how many of us want to wait? Like, you pray on something, you like, well, okay, well, Jesus, hit my line. My phone open, But when you don't want to wait on God, you seek an answer. Yeah. And then you'll find out it's ChatGPT giving you an answer. It's man giving you an answer.
So you wouldn't think, if somebody asked you your horoscope sign, why would you answer them with the actual name of the sign? Like, isn't that inviting like that into your life? Like, just by even saying, like, for example, Aries, I'm an Aries, I'm a Christian, I don't believe in it, it's not the thing that I stand for, but I still introduce myself as an Aries. Like, you don't think that's wrong?
I get what you're saying, and that is a tough place, because for myself, I don't want to seem like super churchy or judgmental, so I try to figure a way to joke about it. Like I mentioned earlier, I might say, like, oh, my sign is a dollar sign, or something jokingly to try to stray away from the conversation. But I've been in situations where it's brought up again, so then I'm like, darn, like, how do I get out of this without seeming like I'm judging that person? And then so I might say, well, they call me an Aquarius, or apparently I'm that. But even then, it is kind of cringy, and I do realize in the back of my head, then I'm almost affirming that's okay to say, because at the times I've taken, like, I don't believe in that, usually then it's a kind of a discord. And I think some fellas can feel me on this. You might be on a great date, you might be having a good time, you might be like, man, she cute, and y'all kind of feeling each other, and that comes out, and you're like, dang, like, now I seem like I'm holier than now, this brother,
like,
he about to give me the whole biblical lesson because we said horoscope. So but then if I don't take a stand, then it's like, right, you bring up that point, and so now I'm a man that's not standing on something, and I have to put my foot down somewhere, and you got to die on some hill, so might as well just take the stance early on, I guess.
Yeah, like if you're denying it, or you're being part of the culture, when you need to show and lead.
Yeah.
I think it's because you made a great point, because we get asked that a lot in regards to, because again, I don't really follow it. Obviously, I know my sign as well, but it's more of, okay, how do we say something, but also not entertaining that we actually follow it, but just as we could just have conversation, and is this going to be a deal breaker? Because now I'm more intrigued of how much does this mean to you? Because this is not something that I follow. It doesn't mean too much to me. But if it's something that you're now, because now that means we're at different. We may be at different points in our journey. You're more so. You say you're spiritual because again, I've dated a lot of women who say they're just spiritual. I'm like, okay, so where you at with your religious? You're not okay. You're not all the way in your walk. Okay, but you're saying you're spiritual. Is this a spirit that you're following? Because there's multiple spirits out there. I don't know.
Everything's a spirit.
Yeah, so I'm saying I don't know what spirit is calling you to follow this right here, but again, it's for I know that's more of an icebreaker question. I'll entertain it as an icebreaker question, but anything further of studying and trying to talk to it more, it kind of is like I don't know if this is like something that's for me. Yeah,
you kind of know when you're in that adultery standpoint when you go into your horoscope sign versus you going to God.
Yeah,
like you going like, okay, what does they said they this, then they instead of praying like, well, Father, is this the person for me? Like reveal to me in this interaction, is our relationship will work or not? And God will show you something. And it may be, y'all going on the whole that might be a thing that's like, okay, well, Father, you trying to show me to get out of here because you don't want me to stare up at the sky and gaze upon it and give that some type of power.
Yeah, okay.
Even though you may not want to seem judgmental, the person who is asking you for your horoscope is going to instantly judge you and associate you with whatever your horoscope is.
Oh, you
so
this, you that?
It's a two-edged
We're not
sword.
compatible. Oh, you usually I've dated. I'm like,
but wouldn't
But you haven't had a real conversation with me, so.
But I think long term you wouldn't want to be with that person or even want to continue to associate yourself with that person. Just got to be more true to yourself.
Yeah.
We're such people pleasers and we don't want to be viewed this and that. But I mean, I know as I'm walking my journey with Christ and I'm getting to know him and I'm slowly bettering my life, like I know that whenever I do get there, like I would be proud, like, don't ask me my sign. My sign is Jesus.
And be careful about being so neutral. The other day I was having these thoughts that if people are too neutral about too many things, there's dishonesty in there. Because we all think something, even if we don't want to admit it all the time. But if you're not even open to telling someone how you think, or you're not confident about it, or you're scared about how other people are going to view you, you're being dishonest with yourself too.
Go for it.
Oh no, I was just add one thing. You go. I was just saying. It feels like one of those things where it's like you're kind of rejecting God because you're not standing on how you really truly feel. And God always watches you. He knows what's going on. He's like God's inside of you. Like So in your spirit, your spirit be like, I don't know, why is you still like entertaining this? And you'd be like, okay. But again, your point, and both of you guys just harping on, is just saying that standing your ground of what you believe in. I feel like we have a lot of. Sometimes we can be, and I've been guilty of this, being a lukewarm Christian, when you're not all the way, when something is wrong, but you're not standing firm on it, and we have to stand firm on those things.
Yeah.
What if you're not standing firm on it because you're still learning?
Okay.
That's I would say that it's different, but making sure that are you doing everything in your power to learn more? Because you can say, oh, I haven't learned this. But why not? Are you okay? Or what are you doing to learn more? Are you actually reading? Are you praying? Or what is your next steps?
Yeah, that's true, and I that's a good point, right? And I think that takes a lot of men to lead that, right? It's got to be a lot of men to lead that charge, right, and help support their sisters. For them sisters to also take a stand in that and be in the spaces we can't be in, right? To have those tough conversations, because. At what point do you say, hey, I'm going to be bold about what I believe in, or are you going to be passive? Because I feel like if you continuously be passive, then you don't create the opportunity to teach somebody. So that was my question for y'all. Like, how do y'all go on? I don't want to give the answer, but how do y'all go about addressing those situations? Ooh, I stopped myself twice because I was gonna help y'all out. I don't want to bail y'all out.
Addressing what?
Right. If you're in that situation and there's an opportunity to possibly teach, or I don't want to use that word. Dang, I'm dodging that word. Like, in those moments where you're facing this scenario, how are y'all going about responding to the scenario? Like what it's two key things I'm reaching for, and I want to give it.
I'll just start. So if I'm on a date and this is the first day interacting, she's asking me that I'm probably more so just, but oh yeah, I know my zodiac sign. If there's any further into it, like, oh, that means you follow this. I'll probably be honest with you. I'm just gonna be like, I don't really follow zodiac signs. Like, I don't really believe in them. I understand them. I don't have a problem with you know, obviously you want, you know, you following and all that, but at the same time, I don't follow that and I don't believe in that. And then in the back of my mind, it unlocks like, okay, again, how serious is this for you? And maybe we're not going to be compatible because this isn't something that I'm doing. And I'm not trying to, maybe that's my problem. Maybe I'm not trying to change you because I don't know where you're at. And letting you, okay, I'm like, if this is something that you want to keep following or this is what you believe in, zodiac signs, okay, well, that's just not me, and then we'll probably fizzle out from there.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say that I'm going to take that step of faith and just tell them, you know, I don't believe that either. I believe that God changes people from the inside, and the Spirit of God is the only thing that can do that. So you don't have to be bound by what a horoscope says, but it's not going to be a determining factor in my a continuing friendship or relationship with somebody. Because I'm going to say, I'm going to want to know you. I'm going to want to understand you more and how you relate to me, because that's what I'm more interested in.
Okay.
I would be like, did you see that we have the same cat? But because I did say earlier, you know, I do believe some truth. Not so much like it breaks down each person. Yeah. Like how it breaks you down. But I do believe, like, as far as like, you know, like how the moons align, the stars, again, if it's science, if it falls under science, not so much like, oh, I'm this and that. Like, I'm, you know, moody, I'm rude, I'm always right. So I really don't know how I would address that. I'd probably just hear him out. Like I said, I'm not torn between the two, but I don't really ever look up my horoscope. I don't follow it. I don't really ever even ask anybody their sign, because it's not really, again, it's just something that I really don't follow. But I mean, it's interesting, you know, I've read it, but I wouldn't know. Okay, honestly.
Yeah. See, and this. Okay,
I was going to say one other thing, because I know Michaela was like, that's not going to be something that kind of like stops you from still trying to talk to that person. I think for me, as in my growing up, I grew up in a household that was like zero tolerance of magic, zero tolerance of witchcraft, zero tolerance of psychic. So for me, that's where my mind goes to, like reading palms, reading cards, psychic. And I'm like, nah, I don't want to deal with any of that because I don't know what kind of spirit you have on you. So I'm just like withdrawn immediately.
Yeah. And see, but you at that right there, at that last word, I think ties to it is withdrawing, because that implies teaching. So, but to teach, one of the best ways is to abstain. So if you're abstaining, then it causes the conversation, because I'm not judging you. I'm not telling you to do anything. Me, myself, is going to abstain. It's like if you see somebody fasting for something, like, what you fasting from? Why are you doing that? And then now you asking the question. Now you like, you thinking about, like, dang, maybe I should put the pork down. Maybe I should put the shellfish down. Maybe I should put the certain type of meat down for a second while I'm fasting this time. Then it makes you ask, why are they doing it, right? And these are internal questions people are having. Like, one thing my mom always said, sometimes, Dylan, you'll be the only Bible people ever read. So if you abstain from it yourself, and then you could teach that, like, why not doing it? Because I think sometimes we talk about horoscopes, but I feel like that same issue also draws in the line with holidays, because people idolize the holiday instead of the reason for the season, right? I love Christmas. I think it's a great time, but people put more purpose to Santa Claus than Jesus. Like, you don't tell your kids Jesus got us the gift. You say Santa got the gift. Who is Santa? You didn't give yourself the credit as the parent. You gave an imaginary figure and not Jesus. And I feel like that be more the issue, right? Kind of with the good and bad, right? The good is it's gift giving. They gave Christ gifts. It's a good season, right? Great. Right. Bad thing is you're giving it to idols instead of the reason for the season. Same with horoscopes, right? God can give you a dream, a vision, signs, symbols, right? Even though he did say that part about Matthew about signs, but still, God will give it to you. The problem is you idolize it, where it's like, well, I can't talk to this person. They're a Sagittarius. I can't talk to this person. You're a Gemini. You're two-sided. Then you're feeding into something that's man-made instead of teaching how to get out of that. So that's what I was curious about. Like, and y'all kind of touched on that. Yeah.
So you're saying modeling when you say abstaining, like modeling is the best way of teaching somebody.
Absolutely. Because it eliminates the judgment.
Yeah.
It eliminates me even going on a whole facade that I've went on this mic saying, or, you know, it avoids all of that because it's like, well, you know, I don't really believe in horoscopes. And you leave it at that, they going to be, you know, something inside of them going to get to move it around because you're abstaining.
So do you think when it says it in the Bible, when it talks about signs in certain scriptures, do you think it's referring to anything with the astrology?
You know, I think so, because I'll tell you why. Because there's multiple places that it's mentioned, right? In Matthew, Christ told them, he said, the only sign I will give this wicked and adulterous generation is the sign of Jonah, right? And because Jonah did what? He ran away. He ran away from his responsibilities. He wasn't trying to do it. He said, the heck with that, I'm out, right? Swallowed by Leviathan, right? Because he didn't want to go preach to Nevaeh, ironically, the same place that created and started this whole conversation that we're talking about. He was to preach to these people. And he's like, I don't want to go over there. These people have me enslaved. I'm not about to do that. I was enslaved to the culture and to these people. No, ran away from it, right? Mm-hmm. Because they believed in signs and symbols. He was like, I don't want nothing to do with it. And he kind of was partially scared. Didn't want to do anything from it. But God said the only sign, talking about us, because it's Jesus. We got the same Jesus. He wasn't talking about Daniel and them, David. They were long dead. Jesus talking about us now. Paul, from on down to us. He said the only sign this wicked and adulterous generation is going to get is a sign of Jonah. And there's so much in that is teaching us. Then it teaches us that maybe why is it that I'm seeking a sign and a symbol? Why am I looking for things to give me the answer instead of allowing God to give me the answer? And God will use people. God will show you something for you. God will make it clear and plain. And I think that's the beauty of it, because the horoscope's implicit secret. Like those things that they create, it's like you got to get the publication. You got to read further. God make it plain. Like our Father makes it so plain where you can't mistake it. You done drove, and Jesus said, hey, it's traffic. Nah, Father, I take this route. It's traffic. You should go left. Then I got to make two left. It's traffic. It look clear. Turn right. You hit traffic. And he been telling you, but sometimes we looking for this, God, I need you to, snowstorm and knock the road off and make it burn on fire for me to go left, instead of just seeing that God was really showing you and telling you right then and there. So
do you think because it's in the Bible as far as like signs, this and that, do you think because that is in the Bible, maybe astrology, the horoscopes was created from in bad spiritually in a bad way, because do you get where I'm going? Do you think it was created spiritually in a bad way because it does talk about signs in the Bible? Uh-huh. And it's used to kind of shift people to go the wrong way.
Got you.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Do you think maybe that's probably like in the spiritual world, maybe that's why it was created, to confuse people? Because in the Bible it talks about signs in a certain way, but hey, let me just create this and confuse them.
Absolutely. That's a really good question. That's the question people need to ask. And like, why? That's the why question. So if you go back to which was brought up earlier, at the time, Nimrod, the first king to ever live on the earth, he created an empire called the Land of Summer, or Sumer, Sumer, right? He created this land, created the Tower of Babel. That's the time of, so all my scientists, Pangea, right? When the continents were all together, we all had one language. He also created his own divination, his own way of belief, his own system. He's the first ruler ever. Once that was conquered, God split everything up. People also, in the time of Daniel, was like, I want to follow who? The first leader. Why would I follow the second guy? I'm going to bring back up, right? History, repeats itself. So they picked up those practices again. That person, Nimrod, and all the people, those sorcerers and wizards, they never believed in Yahweh. They never believed in Elohim, right? The name Elohim means supreme deity of all deities, because at that time they believed in so many things, especially people who know Indian history, right? They had the Hindu religion has so many gods, right? They were back then as well. So who was the supreme God of all God? Elohim. So God's name in the old time, Elohim, when they believed, they said, this God is the only God. But how do we know that? Through Abraham, through Isaac, through Jacob. We go through these people. At that time, these people were captives in those time periods, the time of Noah, the time before his father. They believed in that God, the same God, all the way to Adam and Eve. And when you trace it back, you see who ran away from God and worshiped their own God. We often forget that the angels came down and slept with man and woman. They created Nephilim. They created giant. God literally flooded the earth. People be like talking about science and galaxies and planets, but they rarely want to talk about those things because it answers your question. They believed and created a religion and a falsehood that was inspired by what is called the architect of the universe, an illuminated light. They believed in things that were not of God. And God constantly said, Lucifer, the one that's bringing light, is lying to you. He says it in Ezekiel 24. He says it constantly, that your enemy will go around like a roaring lion seeking to devour. And if you look at that, the symbolism of that, it goes back to the land of summer. What did they put on their walls? They believed in different lines. They believed in Pegasus. They believed in these beings coming down and enlightening their minds. So they said that we built these pyramids and these statues and these things. And that's their history.
Yeah.
The Bible highlights scientific history. Don't look at the Bible as like a one-sided story. It's a story of all these cultures. If you deep dive in their culture, they did not believe in God. They didn't believe in Yahweh. They believed in something else giving them power to rule over God. So that's how we know the root of it is not inspired by God, who then brought his only son that died and rose again for our sins. So then it's like, I can't align with it because Yahweh does not approve of it, because he showed us in history when man tried to bring that forward. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, because I just say that because, people like me that are learning, and, it can confuse them because, it could be like, okay, well, yeah, if it's in the Bible, then they're like, again, there must be some truth to it. I've said it. I just said it. So, I think, and maybe that's why I think there's some truth to it.
And that's the hard conversation, because you're talking about culture.
Yeah.
And I think that we see that now, especially 2024. People be like, oh, you believe in this some westernized belief system, and our ancestors, they would worship the dead, they would worship this stuff. And then you kind of have to be careful with that practice, because we're not following those things anymore. And just because some of our ancestors may have practiced those things, don't make them right.
And you can totally be in a space where you are trying to understand or trying to learn, but not going on the wrong side. When we say being in the world or being in the word, if you're trying to understand, then you're going towards the direction of right and less toward the direction of wrong. So it's not necessarily being caught in the middle or being lukewarm, like we talked about earlier. Yeah,
it's just trying to avoid believing in things that don't bring you eternal salvation. That's the key.
Yeah,
that's definitely the truth. Definitely don't fall in these falsehoods and these false prophets, man.
Yeah.
Don't do it. But we'll wrap up today's episode. Want to thank y'all for tuning in. Thank you, our guest Dylan here.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, Dylan.
With the knowledge, spitting that knowledge.
Bless.
Make sure y'all tune in. Dylan, you have any social media they want people to follow you at, or?
Oh yeah. Y'all can follow me on the gram at Dylan the Israelite. I got a grocery store called Aisle 5, like clean up on Aisle 5. So if y'all into produce at all, I do that. And your Kobe Radio, I'm not this fancy like y'all. I'm just all voice, but I deep dive Bible studies. So if you like deep dive Bible studies, talk to me.
Yes, so thank y'all for tuning in. Hopefully we have Dylan again. He was such a great guest for this episode, so hopefully we get to have him back.
Smart.
I know. He was preaching to us.
No, it's a blessing and honor.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you.
So thank y'all for tuning in to another episode of the Uncommon Crew. We out.